Hello, today we want to talk about breaker blocks and how to trade the breaker block strategy. How do you trade the breaker block strategy? Now, what is more common is the order blocks. We have order blocks, and we have breaker blocks. I know you might be hearing this for the first time. Okay, so order blocks is just like your regular demand and supply zone. This is your regular demand, supply and demand zone, but your breaker block is what I'll be explaining to you today. I've made several videos on demand and supply, but what is order block, or what are order blocks, and how do you trade order blocks? How can they help you to become successful as a forex trader? So I'm going to be doing justice to this both now, and I'm going to show you sharp examples of how they have occurred, and you can add it as one of your strategies, your trading strategies. So order blocks are basically demand and supply zones. All right, while breaker blocks are failed demand and supply zones that price later came back to mitigate. All right, you know the concept of mitigation. I've made video, I will link it in the description of this video about the concept of the mitigation. Mitigation actually is a process whereby price comes to a demand zone and buy from a demand zone. All right, that has been previously formed. All right, why a supply mitigation as well, that is for a buy scenario. And mitigation as well could also mean when price comes to a supply zone to mitigate, to buy from it. When price comes to the zone, to buy from the zone. All right, so that is mitigation, whereby buy orders are being filled, whether in a buy scenario or in a sell scenario. But that is not what we're talking about today. We're talking about order blocks. So breaker blocks. So what are breaker blocks? Breaker blocks are actually nothing but failed order blocks that price now comes to mitigation of failed order blocks. All right, so now what are order blocks? Order blocks are just your regular demand and supply zone. Like you can see now, if the market is on a bullish phase, as you can see, so now price, this is a demand zone. These are demand zones. All right, so when price actually comes to the demand zone, this is an order block, OD, or demand zone. When price comes to the demand zone to buy from it, it is now said to have been mitigated. Okay, mitigated, right? So but what about that is for a buy scenario, and for a sell scenario you have something like this. Price actually forms lower lows and lower highs, and now this forms a supply zone, and price now comes to this zone to sell from the zone. So this supply zone here now has been, or order block as it's called by some traders, has been what? Mitigated. But now what are now order breaker blocks? So breaker block is a situation, we're going to show you for both a buy scenario and for a sell scenario. Breaker block is a situation whereby your order blocks fail. You see the market is like in a bullish phase. Okay, your order block failed. Now let's say the market is price is supposed to come in this phase. Now sometimes price is supposed to come to this place, to this buy zone, to this sell zone, to sell from it. All right, so it's a failed order block. But now price does what? Now price just buys above that zone that could have been bought from. All right, and now what happens? Price comes back to do what? To buy from the failed zone. This is called your breaker block. When price buys above when price comes back to mitigate a failed demand or supply zone, it's called the breaker block. Price now buys from this. So ordinarily you have a zone, you have a rally base supply zone, and price is expected to come back to buy from this zone. But in a situation whereby the price comes to the zone, breaks the zone, did not buy from the zone, and now this forms our order block, sorry, our bearish breaker block, price is expected that price could come here back to that failed zone. This is a failed. Don't worry, I'll be showing you in the chart. I'll be showing you the light in the chart. Failed order block. Price comes to the failed order block and do what? And sell from it. So this is a bearish breaker block. This becomes a failed order block becomes a breaker block. All right, a failed order block becomes a breaker block. So now this is for this scenario. What if in this case now you have this is for the bearish scenario. For a bullish scenario, you have price coming down and rallies down, creates a base and sells further. It is expected that price should come to this zone, to this order block, and sell from it. All right, in a normal scenario. But in this case, price decides to buy above, breaks the order block and does not mitigate it. And now when price finally comes back to that zone that failed, that order block that failed, it forms what we call the breaker block, because this zone was broken. The price did not buy from it, the zone was broken, and now it forms a block that when price later comes back to mitigate the zone. All right, to mitigate the zone. So I don't know if this is clear, but I'm going to show you right now on the chart. Let me show you on the chart. Now let us see. The first example. Like you can see in this case now, you can see in this case that look at this market. The market went down here, bought up and sold. The market ought to have this is like a demand zone. The market ought to have somehow bought from this demand zone. All right, bought from this demand zone. But what happens here is that the market broke the demand zone and later formed a breaker block. All right, and when it formed a breaker block, it sold from it. I don't know if that is clear. This is a zone that the market ought to have bought from, but the zone was broken to the downside. This becomes a failed order block, which will now turn to a breaker block. Why? Because price would actually come back to the failed order block to sell, to mitigate and to sell from it. This is a bearish phase. I'm going to show you another example right now. Let's see other examples. Now, in this case, this is supposed to be a supply zone whereby price would. This is supposed to be a supply zone whereby price would come to sell from. But what did you see? Price actually came to the zone, bought above the zone, broke this supply zone, bought above the zone. This is a failed supply zone, failed supply zone. But what happens is that subsequently the market, when it failed, sorry, this is it. When it actually failed, broke down, the market subsequently came back to do what? To sell from the zone. All right, this supply zone was broken to the upside. The market came down, went up, and sold from the zone. It formed a breaker block. Let's see more examples. In this scenario as well, this is a demand zone that the market ought to have bought from. This is a demand zone the market ought to have bought from. But in what happened? The market ought to have bought from this demand zone, right? But what happened? The market broke the zone, broke the demand zone, broke it to the downside, and forming this demand zone was a failed demand zone, and the market bought up, came to the zone, formed what is called a breaker block, and sold from that zone. All right, sold from that zone, formed a breaker block and sold from that zone. Let's depict what happened here. You can see the market sold down. There was some form of rally, days rally demand zone. Okay, the market would have perhaps come to this zone to buy from this zone, but instead it broke down, giving us what is called the breaker block, and the market will come back to the breaker block and did what? And sold from it. So that is actually what happened here. That's actually what happened here. Sold from it. Let's see more examples. Here as well, this zone failed, market broke the zone, and then giving us a breaker block and a sell opportunity. Markets, you can now sell from here. The market now sold from that point. That is another example. Let's see more examples. Okay, in this case as well, this is a demand zone that the market ought to have bought from. All right, but the market came back to the zone, broke the zone, and came back to the zone. All right, giving us our breaker block, a bearish breaker block, and sold from that zone. This is another example. So I will show you a small example so you can know how to identify these scenarios. You need to know this strategy that you discover or you learn. You need to know how to identify this strategy. You need to know the strategy, the occurrences of this strategy, and when you see it on your chart, you should know how to identify this strategy so that you can know how to trade them. Now let's see more of such examples. All right, here as well, this is a zone that ought to have this is a demand zone that the price ought to have bought from. This zone. But what happened? The market broke the zone. All right, which is to say this demand zone failed. And what happened? If you have the concept of breaker block, what would have happened is that the market ought to have come to here to sell. All right, the market ought to have come to this zone to sell, but in this case it failed. I just intentionally give you a failed scenario. So in this case, this breaker block did not hold. So not all strategies don't come 100%, does not occur all the time. All right, and no strategy comes with 100% win rate or 100% efficiency. So in this case, this breaker block did not work. It ought to have sold from here, but this breaker block did not work. Instead, it bought from here. So you can see that no strategy is 100% guaranteed. That's why we have win rate and high probability strategies. All right. So, but in this case, you've seen the cases where I've shown you where it works, and I intentionally showed you in a case. Okay, I intentionally showed you a situation whereby it did not work. All right, this ought to have sold from here, but it bought. But no problem. No strategy is 100% correct. All right. Now let us see other one. But this strategy is good. Let's see if there are other examples. Okay, here now, this is a demand zone. The market ought to have bought from this demand zone. All right, but the demand zone failed. The market broke through and came back, giving us a breaker block and sold from it. So you can see it worked right here. In the other case, it did not work. All right, but I've shown you many cases where it worked. So this strategy also works. All right. Now let's see if we have more examples. Okay, we have another one here as well. The market ought to have bought from this zone. What happened instead? The market did what? The market decided to come back to the zone. Stayed a lot of times. It took time. Actually, the market stayed there for a lot of time, but eventually it dropped. The market eventually dropped, sold from that zone. This is your breaker block strategy. Bearish breaker block. All right. Here as well. Here, this is a bullish breaker block. This market ought to have sold from here, from this supply zone. Actually, you might as well say the breaker block is a section whereby supply zone turns into a demand zone, and or a demand zone turns into a supply zone. And some people can say demand support turning to resistance and resistance turning to support, but it's not exactly the same as support turning to resistance and resistance turning to support. I want to explain. Support turning to, I've done a video on support turning to resistance and all that. Support turning to resistance is actually support zone. A support zone is different from a supply zone. Now, support zone is a zone whereby price have been coming and rejecting from that zone. Okay, your supply is just like the roof of your house. All right, price had come to a zone multiple times, so it's holding. That is a supply zone. But a demand zone that we trade, price has not actually come to that zone. Price actually just created an unfulfilled order whereby we sell from. But a demand zone is different from a support zone. A support zone is different from a demand zone, and a resistance is different from a supply zone. This is actually price comes to this zone, reject, come again, reject, come again, reject. This is like your resistance, okay, and this is your support, okay, support. So support is not the same as your supply zone, even though price sells from a support, from a resistance or supply zone, okay, because for a supply zone, price may not have come to the zone, but a block has been created, an unfulfilled order has been created that has to be mitigated. The support is not the same as a demand zone, okay, it's not the same as demand zone. So this is I'm going to explain this concept perhaps in a separate video so you can understand this vividly. So in this case now, this is a zone, this is just a demand zone that price ought to have sold from, a beautiful demand zone that price ought to have sold from. But what happened? Price broke through the zone, so this becomes a failed supply zone turned into a bullish breaker block. So this is a supply zone, failed supply zone, which turned into a bullish breaker block. So this strategy is unique. Okay, the strategy is unique. This is another one. I think this is another one. So this is like a zone. This is a zone that was broken to the upside. All right. So this is a zone, a rally zone, and the market ought to have come here to this zone to mitigate this zone to the upside, to buy from this zone. But what happened? The market broke through this zone, but rather came back to form a bearish order block which the market sold from. All right, so this is it. All right, these are other examples. Here the market had or created a demand zone that the market ought to have bought from, but it broke the zone, came back to the zone, and ought to have sold, but here it failed. So this is a failed breaker block. This is a failed breaker block. I intentionally put the failed case and the successful case, all right, to show you that no strategy is 100% accurate. But I've showed you both the successful cases, many successful cases of this strategy, and I also showed you some cases whereby it did not work. All right, but that does not mean that the strategy is not effective. All right, so this is another one. Here, the market, this is a supply zone. The market ought to have sold from here. All right, but then what happened? This supply zone was broken. Price broke through the supply zone to the upside, and giving us, this is a failed supply zone, giving us what is called a bearish breaker block. Price came back to the zone and bought from it, and this is a successful case of a bearish breaker block. All right, now let's see another one. This is a demand, this is a supply zone as well. Price ought to have bought from this supply zone. Okay, price ought to have bought from the supply zone, but what happened? The market broke through the supply zone, came back up to the supply zone, and did what? And sold. All right, and sold from the supply zone. All right, so this one also as well, this is a supply zone, or rather the demand zone. The other one we treated, I hope I didn't pick it wrongly. Okay, this is a demand zone. Sorry, this is a demand zone. The price ought to have bought from this demand zone, but what happened? Price broke through the failed demand zone and mitigated it in form of a breaker block and sold. All right, so in this case as well, this is a demand zone where the price ought to have bought from, and then what happens? The market breaks through the zone, comes back to the zone, creating a breaker block, a bearish breaker block, and sold from it. Beautiful drop. Here as well, what happened? This is a demand zone that failed. Price broke through the demand zone. The failed demand zone. Price broke through the demand zone, came back, creating a bearish breaker block, and bought from it. All right, this is a supply zone. A supply zone. Price ought to have come to this supply zone, to sell from it. But what happened? The price broke through the supply zone, came back to the zone, creating a breaker block, bearish breaker block, and a bullish breaker block, and bought from it. Okay, let's see more examples. We'll soon round off this video. Here as well, this is a demand zone, a supply zone, sorry, that the market ought to have sold from. But the market rather broke through the zone. I'm doing more examples to you so that you can actually get used to this strategy. As I'm taking as much examples as possible for you. So the market is a supply zone that the market ought to have actually sold from. But what happens? The market broke through the zone, came back to the zone, creating a breaker block, a bullish breaker block, and bought from it. All right, beautiful one. Here as well, the same thing happened here as well. All right, this is supposed to be a zone where the market should have bought from, but it broke the zone and did not actually mitigate the zone. So this is a failed scenario of it. This is a failed scenario. All right, this is a failed scenario. All right, so here as well, this is supposed to be a demand zone whereby the market will buy from. But what happens? It broke through. Market broke through the zone, came back to the zone, forming a bearish breaker block, and sold from it. That is a successful case. So let's see if we have more examples here as well. The market would have bought from this zone, this demand zone, but what happened? It broke through the zone and came back to the zone, forming a bearish breaker block, and sold from it. With all these examples, I believe that you must have known this another case as well. I believe that you must have mastered this strategy by now. So you need to go back to your chart. This is a failed supply zone, failed. But the market broke through the zone, came back to the zone, forming a bullish breaker block, and bought from it. All right. So that is it for this strategy here as well. Just take time to view this strategy, depict this strategy on your chart, backtest this strategy. All right, backtest this strategy. Take time to backtest this strategy. Take time to backtest this strategy. Now I want to give you two tips. Every strategy has tips that will help you to increase your win rate and your probability of success while trading this strategy. I want to give you two important tips that will help you to trade the breaker block strategy effectively and succeed. Now, what are those tips? The tips is that if you have the bullish breaker block and the bearish. Okay, every strategy has a bullish phase and a bearish breaker block. All right, so always ensure that you are trading the bullish breaker block in a bullish order flow or in a bullish market structure. Now, for a bearish breaker block, always ensure that you are trading the bearish breaker block from in a bearish order flow or bearish market structure. If you don't know what is market structure or bearish market or bearish order flow, I've made a video on that. Kindly view that video in the description box of this video. All right, try to know what is market structure. You cannot become a successful forex trader if you don't know market structure, if you don't know order flow. You need to know order flow, you need to know market structure before so you can know that you can identify the orders, you can identify the trends. By layman, the newbie forex trader call it the market, call it trend. All right, trend, but it is actually a market structure. Market creating higher highs and higher lows in a bullish phase. All right, market creating lower lows and lower highs is a bearish market structure. So trade bullish breaker blocks on a bullish market structure and trade bearish breaker block on a bearish market structure. All right, so for higher probability of success. Okay, now also trade this strategy in an active market session like a London session or the New York session. Trade this strategy in an active. Don't trade it in an inactive or a session that is characterized by low volume like the Asian session. Try to trade this strategy in a New York session, New York Open, or perhaps during the London session, which is the most active session in the forex market. So these two tips would actually help you to succeed or to increase your probability of success while trading this strategy. Now, if you're yet to subscribe to the YouTube channel, please kindly do so. If you're yet to subscribe, do so right now. Do so I can encourage us to make more content. And kindly like this video if you find some value from it. Give this video a thumbs up, share with your friends, and you encourage us to do more, to provide you free content, useful content that can help you to increase your trading success. Now we also have a Telegram channel whereby I post free chart analysis almost every day. So if you want to join that free Telegram channel, kindly join, kindly see the link, follow the link at the description box of the video to join, or the profile section of this YouTube channel to join our free Telegram channel. All right, this week alone, you see beautiful setups that I posted on GBP USD, AUSD, all right, all USD. So and they will kill the market. Those two setups were powerful and people made profit from them. So join our free Telegram channel if you're yet to do so. The link in the description box of this video. As well, if you want me to train you, want me to take you by the hand and make you a successful forex trader, want me to take you by the hand and help you to become a successful forex trader, kindly contact me, and my contact details in my Telegram channel. All right, contact me and I'm going to take you by the hand, even if you don't know anything about forex, even if you are a total newbie in this business. I'm going to help you, train you, and I don't do collective training. I do one-on-one mentorship. The reason I do that is because I know that each individual has his own learning curve. So I want to stoop to your level and help you understand your challenges and make you to be profitable. Even if you are an old forex trader, but you are not profitable or you are finding it difficult to succeed, I can as well train you and brush you up. Several people are I'm currently in my tutelage. I'm going to help you to the best of my ability to make you a successful forex trader. All right. So till I come your way next time, do have a wonderful and a blissful day. Bye.